Hey guys, and welcome to another painting process video. Today we're actually getting into a self-portrait. So let's dive right in. I have quickly put a wash of burnt umber onto oil paper in the general shape of the head. Not too exact. And what I'm doing right now, I wish I had a camera pointing at my face, but the whole time when I'm in this stage and I'm just trying to block out the shadows, my eyes are squinted. I like if you guys are listening to me right now, go ahead, squint your eyes and look at the reference image on the left. That's exactly what I'm seeing, and that is what I am trying to go for. It's I find it a lot easier squinting your eyes because it lets you kind of really see where the lights are, where the darks are. Yeah, so that's kind of my process right now. I am just going through the whole thing and putting all of my shadows wherever I see the dark spots. Dark. Oh gosh, the dark spots when I squint. Woo. All right. Also, I want to say this part is in real time. So you guys are seeing exactly how long it takes to kind of do that underpainting. I know sometimes it can get a little boring, but I do think it's helpful to see how many strokes go into each spot and how long it takes for this process. So once I have a good general sense of where the shadows are, then I load up a little more paint on my brush with a lot less thinner, and I just go into those darker spots again. And I'm not painting eyes here. Like that right there, I'm not painting a nose, right? That is just the shadow shape under the nose. I'm not painting a line there. That's just or I'm not painting a lip. It's just a line where that shadow is. So I want you guys, I don't want you to think that I'm right off the bat thinking about these shapes as facial features. I really am just thinking of them as blobs of lightness and blobs of darkness and just trying to get as close as I can. Now, as always, let's talk about the reference photo for a second. If you notice, there are some nice strong shadows under the brow bones, under the nose, under the top lip, under the bottom lip, and under the chin. For me, that makes for a wonderful reference photo to work off of because it makes my job pretty easy, especially this stage. Whenever I see someone who's kind of struggling with their painting process and I see their picture that they're working off of and it's like a really well lit beauty lighting of a celebrity, right? Like it's really hard when you don't have shadows to work off of in your photos. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for here. And then the other thing is, so this is a self-portrait that I just quickly took on my iPhone. I have a single light above my head. And I'm not going for photorealism here. I'm using the reference as just a reference. I've mentioned in other videos, I just really enjoyed the organic process of creating a portrait out of nothing. So if I wanted to, I could have sketched this out or really, used a projector to make sure everything was accurate. But I'm not so concerned about that today. You'll see my features are a little enlarged on my painting versus the reference photo. And I did that because I really want to play up the emotion in this image. And I thought it'd be fun to do by enlarging those features. Give me more real estate to work with. But yeah, so now I am just going back in and really honing in on those shapes. Again, at this point, not thinking about the features themselves, just really getting into the general shapes of lightness and darkness. One of the really kind of fun things about using this process, going in with an underpainting, is that it is both additive and subtractive. So not only can I just go in with my paint and add shadows anywhere, I could also go in with a clean paintbrush and scrub off the paint in those areas to reveal a highlight. And that's a really fun technique. So now that I have a good general sense of where my shadows are going to be, where all of my placements are going to be, now I'm going in and I'm starting to think about the features themselves. This is when I start thinking about the gravity of the shapes, the weight of the shapes, the angles, the comparative distances between all of the shapes. And really just trying to hone in on that, making sure all of my angles on all of the edges are correct. And by correct, I mean, correct enough. Now I am using my standard colors that I typically use, and that's just alizarin permanent, yellow brown, cobalt blue, burnt umber, and then I also like to use a little transparent vermilion. Sometimes I use vermilion, but not in this one. Pixelmator is what I use, but I use the color picker tool to get a nice mid-tone. I wanted to make sure I wasn't picking from the highlight itself. But I wanted a nice general color that I can start going in and blocking in my shapes. When I say blocking them in, I do mean blocking them in. I'm not being exact here. I'm using a nice flat square stiff brush, and I am just going in and like really kind of scrubbing it in. You can kind of see there I'm using quite a bit of pressure on my paintbrush and just working it into those different areas. As I'm going down the face, I know we're going to get darker in those midtone areas because it's getting further away from the light. So I'm just adding a little bit of paint as we go. I'm not adding burnt umber into it because that's going to gray out the color. Instead, I'm adding more of my alizarin permanent and more of my yellow brown as I want to get into those darker, richer areas. Pretty early on, I like to add a sense of form. I like to show that it is a 3D object as early on as I can. And so that's why you see me going back up into that upper part and just adding in some of those highlight areas. It just helps my brain as I'm working into the other areas if I have a sense of form right from the beginning. And as you guys can see, I'm not being exact with any of this stuff yet. I really am just blocking it in, roughing it in. I'm only about maybe 40% sure of any of the final placements in this yet. I still know that I'm going to need to make a lot of changes as we go. I just know that I need to start somewhere. All right, so now this next part is where a lot of the magic in painting happens for me. And it's when you get to play around with the cool tones. I just find it so fun and intriguing. And you can see on the left side of the reference photo, a lot of those cool tones peeking in around the shadow areas. And so that's all I'm doing right here is going in fairly early, using my color picker tool to help me isolate and mix my colors and roughing those into those spots. Now, when I get to the edges, I do want to make sure that I'm making it a round form. So I am darkening up the edge and just being really conscious about the placement of my edges at this point. I know that this is going to be a really loose portrait. It's going to have a lot of movement and fun. and I'm not going in and making a background. So I do, you'll see me being really careful around the edges that I am following the exact shapes. At this point, we are starting to see a little bit of likeness. It's still pretty rough looking, but we're getting there. I do also want to say at this point, unfortunately, I had two cameras set up, one doing a time lapse and one doing a full video, and my camera doing the full video did run out of space. So I do have the time lapse here for you guys. But at this point, I am just going in and taking my transparent vermilion, mixing it into my flesh tone, and just kind of working that in all those areas. And I know it seems like it just kind of progressed a whole lot there, but I was just taking that same process, and once I have it on a big scale, I just start to break it down into smaller and smaller scale and start to work on those. So unfortunately, I don't have the full video for you guys, but I do have the time lapse where you can see all the different strokes that I take, and yeah, you can watch the process and how I kind of emphasize the emotion and try and bring that out. And yeah, I'll start rambling now. Hope you guys like it.